Greetings. I'm Pat Hill, and welcome to my inaugural podcast with Inspired Performance Solutions. I'm very excited about 2023 and what it's going to bring for Inspired Performance Solutions, this podcast platform, and hopefully I can provide you with some insights and some ideas to help you develop your own leadership voice and maximize your potential as a leader wherever you may be. To give you a little bit of background about me, I just recently retired from the United States Navy after 28 years of service. And throughout that journey, I really struggled, especially in the early years, with leadership and what is leadership and what making some bad choices and learning some tough lessons. And so my hope is that I can impart some of those experiences onto you, and hopefully you can avoid some of the mistakes that I made. And throughout the series, we're also going to have guests to talk about some of their journeys and some of their struggles and experiences as well. So let me just start just by talking about myself a little bit and where I've been. I joined the Navy in 1994. I went to boot camp and I was a naval reservist. I did that for 3.5 years and drilled at the Navy Marine Corps Reserve Center in Peoria, Illinois. And I think it's under a different name now. And I think, I think it's under a different name now. But so I did that for 3.5 years while I was going to college. I was a music education major at Illinois State University. And I was getting into my senior year of college, and my wife was pregnant, and I needed a job. My new family needed income and support. So I auditioned for the Navy music program as a French hornist, and I was accepted in 1997. And that started my journey as an enlisted Navy musician. I served as a French horn instrumentalist and an instructor until 2012. When I commissioned as a limited duty officer bandmaster and started leading Navy bands and being in charge of those organizations. Did that from 2012 until 2022 when I retired. So along that way, as I climbed the ranks and started gaining more responsibility, one of the things that I really struggled with was how to inspire and influence people without being coercive. You know, in the military, we have these devices on our collars and on our uniforms that depict rank and position. And with certain positions, you're able to dictate to people what they do. As a matter of fact, everyone in the military takes an oath to say, "I will obey the orders of those appointed over me." That's the enlisted oath, is to obey the orders of those appointed over. So once you get a certain amount of rank, you can tell people what to do. Problem was I didn't want to tell people what to do. I wanted to inspire them. I wanted to motivate them, and I really struggled with that. I wanted to be liked, like everybody as a leader. You know, we're human. We want to be liked. We want to be accepted. So there was that fine line and that balance between being their friend and being their boss. And those are some areas that I really struggled with early on. And as I commissioned, I did eventually finish my bachelor's degree in 2004. And then in 2013, I went back and I got my master's degree in public policy and international affairs. And then as I got into another duty station as an officer, my second officer tour, that's where my leadership really struggled. I was the director of training officer at a military training command, and it was the same command where I had previously served as an instructor. So in my mind, I thought, you know what? I know how this institution works. I know what the instructors are dealing with. I know the mission, the goals of this organization. So I think I'm going to do a really good job here. The problem was is that I knew the instructors' jobs, but I didn't know my job as a director of training. So I kind of annoyed some of the instructors with my micromanaging because I knew their jobs. And I really irritated my boss or my bosses because I didn't know my job. I knew my instructors' jobs, but I didn't know mine. And thus where my leadership struggles really came to fruition. And I had a rough time. So I really started studying leadership. What is leadership? Because I wanted to be a good leader. Of course, nobody wants to be a bad leader, right? Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I think I'm going to completely derail this organization today, right? And yet, a lot of people do because we don't understand the nuances of leadership. Leadership training, in whether it's in business school or in the military, tends to focus on getting the job done and the mission accomplishment and meeting these goals. What it fails sometimes to focus on are the people who are going to help you get to your goals. And so I really started studying leadership. What is it? And in 2016, I enrolled in a doctoral program in leadership at Regent University. So, what I found was that leadership is not about a rank or a title or a position, and it's not about telling people what to do. And all leadership experts will agree with this. You know, no matter what you read, who you read or study, they're going to agree that leadership's not about the position that you hold, and it's not about telling people what to do. Leadership is your ability to influence and inspire others towards that common goal. The problem that I discovered as I was studying leadership was that all of the concepts, the leadership concepts, the ideas, the theories, were all presented as if you are, and you're reading this as if you are the person in charge. You are the person who sets the goals and the vision and the mission and all of the things that an organization works towards. But I wasn't in charge. So how do I demonstrate leadership when I'm not the boss? And that's where uh, this begins for most of us. Because most of us aren't the CEO, the president of the organization, the owner, the founder, the lead military officer, the commander. Most of us don't fall into those categories. Most of us are somewhere in the middle. Some of us are even at that entry level. You just graduated from college, you got your first job, and everybody says, "Hey, yeah, you gotta go and demonstrate your leadership." Well, I am the messenger. I convey what my boss tells me, what his boss told him, what her boss told her, on down the line. We have this mission that's set from on high, and we're just kind of the messenger. We're a cog in the machine. So, what does leadership look like when we're not the person in charge? Because this idea that, and it would seem from this that leadership is kind of a linear relationship between the boss and the employee. You know, the boss has that position of leadership, has that authority, tells the employees, that team, what to do and how to get to those mission and get that mission accomplished. But if leadership really is about influence, then it's not just the person in charge and their team. So that is the ultimate question then. How do we demonstrate leadership? How do we implement leadership skills and techniques when we're not the person in charge? What if we can actually, as a leader, we can have influence over our bosses? How do we do that? What if we can inspire our peers? Because a lot of times in a lot of organizations, you're in competition with your peers. There are forced ranking, forced distributions in a lot of organizations where you're actually going to be ranked against the people in your particular pay grade or level or salary grade, and you're ranked against your peers. And then, the ones when promotions open up, the ones who have the um, highest evaluations, they get preference on those promotions. And then if there are budget cuts and we got to lay people off, guess who gets cut off first? It's those folks in the bottom. So when we're actually in competition with our peers, how do we build that trust, and how do we inspire them to do good work for the organization when we might actually be in competition with them for those higher level positions? And then of course our teams, we got to lead our teams, and our subordinates. How do we do that? By implementing these leadership techniques when we're not actually the person in charge that is dictating the mission and the vision and the values of the organization. So that's what I want to talk about throughout the course of this podcast, as well as the services that I provide with Inspired Performance Solutions. So I'll talk a little bit about a little story here. So we talk about a little bit about the leadership. You can demonstrate leadership abilities and skills when you're not in charge, by influencing your bosses, by inspiring your peers, and leading your teams. But what if it doesn't end there? What if we're talking about our neighbors, in our neighborhoods, and our faith groups, in our churches, or if you're just going to the grocery store, right? How do we demonstrate leadership there? A few years ago, I had gone to Best Buy for their Geek Squad, to get their Geek Squad service, to get a computer worked on. And I didn't have an appointment, so I was prepared to wait. There was a person in line in front of me who also didn't have an appointment, and that person was not prepared to wait. And when they were told that it was going to take quite a bit of time before they could get to the issue, this person just started throwing a tantrum. And I can only really describe the behavior of this person as that of a toddler having a tantrum, but throwing in a few F-bombs there. And it was getting pretty ugly. And the employees were doing their best to kind of lower the temperature and help this person, with the understanding that, hey, we can't get to this right now. There are people in front of you. And it started getting ugly. The person called a manager over. Manager started really trying to lower the temperature and saying, hey, look, we're definitely going to get to this. We're going to do this, but it's going to take some time because we have these people in line in front of you. And this person was just not having it. Was throwing, they wanted their computer issue fixed right now. And I'm kind of watching this thing unfold, and I'm getting really uncomfortable because this person's getting really out of line. And, these folks with the Geek Squad, they're doing their best. So I finally said, hey, look, they're just doing their jobs. They're trying to help you, but they can't help you if you keep yelling at them. And this person turned around and got the big mean eyes like they were going to kill me, and just looked me right and pointed at me and said, why don't you just drop dead? And I kind of laughed. I didn't expect that kind of response. And then the person just stormed off, and I said, I hope you feel better. And person turns around and says, well, yes, I do feel better, and kept charging off in the other direction. Meanwhile, the manager is kind of getting the big eyes. I'm like, oh, sir, you really don't have to get involved. We've got this. I appreciate what you were trying to do, but that really wasn't necessary. And I said, this person was out of line, and was getting disrespectful and insulting, and you may have to take that because of the position that you're in, but I don't have to stand by and watch it. There's some people, we appreciate that, thank you, but that really wasn't necessary, and I didn't do it for their thanks. I did it because that person was being disrespectful. So a few minutes later, this person comes back, goes to the desk, and apologizes to the employee and the manager for the behavior, and said they'll wait patiently and get to the problem when. So did I have influence over that situation? Did I demonstrate leadership? Was it the right thing for me to do? I don't know if it was the right thing for me to do, but I felt like I needed to do something because this person was out of line. And I couldn't just stand by and watch. But it allowed that person that time that they needed to cool down and lower that emotional temperature and realize, hey, look, we are all trying to do the same thing. We have the common goal. I want to get my computer fixed. This person wants to get their computer fixed. And the Best Buy Geek Squad, they want to fix the computer. We all have this thing in common. It's just a matter of let's get there together and let's work together on this. Um, so that's one instance of leadership where I wasn't in charge. Um, I wasn't in a position of authority. I wasn't in a position of responsibility for getting this computer issue fixed. But we all have that ability, and we have that. We can intervene in these situations. The goal is to kind of lower that emotional temperature and get everyone to see that, hey, we are all on the same path. We might just disagree on how to get there, and some of us might have a little bit more ambition for our own personal goals, but we've got to be able to see that we're all on the same path here, and the more we can help each other, the better it is for everybody. So those are some of the leadership things that you can apply to everyday life. So leadership's not just that linear relationship between the leader, the person in charge, and the employee. It's more of a spherical relationship between you and the world around you that you have the ability to influence. So that's one of the big takeaways that I think is I want you to take away from this inaugural episode is that leadership's not a linear relationship between the leader, the person in charge, and the follower. It's a spherical relationship between you and the world around you and the influence that you can have on anyone or anything. Um, so, what does it take from a professional sense? What does it take for you to be able to demonstrate leadership when, again, you're not in charge? So one of my favorite authors and one of my favorite authors and mentors, David Marquet, he wrote a book called "Turn the Ship Around." It's actually um, this book right here, one of the best leadership books I've ever read. And he has a second book, um, "Leadership is Language." I highly recommend both of these books. They're fantastic. But Marquet talks about two pillars that we need in order to demonstrate leadership, and also for us, as if we're the ones in charge, if we're leading a team, to be able to give up a certain amount of control. None of us like to be micromanaged, right? None of us like having our boss stand over our shoulder and point out all of the things that they would do differently. So there are two things that we need. One, in order to demonstrate our own leadership skills, but also for our bosses to give us the autonomy we need to be able to do our jobs that we know how to do, and also for us to be able to give that same autonomy to our teams. Those two things, technical competence, first thing. You've got to be competent at what you do. If you're a lawyer, you better know the law. If you're a mechanic, you better know how to fix an engine. If you're, I don't know, if you're a plumber, you better know how to install a sink. The technical competence, you have to know that. The second thing is organizational clarity. The why, the mission, the goals. You've got to understand what the goal of the organization is and where you fit into that. Where does your technical competence assist the organization in meeting its goals? So you've got to have those two things, what Marquet talks about. To those, I add a third, and to make it that powerful triangle, three-legged stool, the third thing is character. You've got to be a person of integrity. You got to have a strong moral compass. look at a lot of organizations and governments and militaries go through these scandals. I guarantee Enron, the executives at Enron, they understood the organizational clarity. They knew what they were trying to accomplish and why and how, and they knew their trade. They were technical experts in the things that got them to those high level executive positions. What they lacked was the moral fortitude to do the right thing and not cut corners and not report income that they didn't have until it got too far out of hand. The U.S. Navy just came out of a scandal, a bribery scandal, involving a civilian contractor in the Seventh Fleet area operations, and this contractor was bribing high-level officials in order for them to use this service, this maritime husbanding service in the Southeast Sea. And so a lot of folks got in some pretty big trouble. And, we're talking about admirals and senior captains. These are people who are highly competent, and they swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution and live by the core values of the Navy of honor, courage, and commitment. But they themselves didn't have the moral fortitude to see these briberies for what they were and not take them. So character is that third leg of the stool that we all need to have in order for us to be considered trustworthy in our professions, in our neighborhoods, in our faith groups, wherever it is, wherever you are. Those are the important things. And to be honest, as a person who's served in the military for a long time, I will take somebody maybe who is a little less competent. I'm not going to say incompetent, but maybe this person knows how to get the job done. Maybe not to the level of excellence that I would prefer, but if they have a high level of integrity and moral fortitude and are not afraid to say, hey, I've got a problem with this and how we're doing business and, the morality of what we're doing, I would much rather have someone of integrity than someone who is highly competent with less integrity. So that's our first episode. Over the next several weeks, my plan is to talk about a few different leadership topics and leadership concepts. I'm hoping to have some guests on to talk about some of their challenges and their struggles and the things that they've overcome, or techniques that they've used in order to demonstrate leadership from where they are. And if you like it, I highly encourage you to hit that subscribe button, follow, subscribe on YouTube, on Facebook, Instagram. My Instagram handle is IPS LLC, and LinkedIn. And I hope to see you and hear from you if you have ideas and suggestions for topics that you want to have discussed, or if you completely disagree with something that I've said, or one of my guests have said. Let us know. We want to have those discussions. We want some different opinions and different ideas on how we can get better, how I can get better, and maybe your experiences have said, hey, look, I tried to implement this thing using this technique and it didn't work, but what really worked was this thing over here. Let us know. We'll take a look at it. We will. I'll research it. Maybe I'll even reach back and go, hey, can you elaborate on this and give me some more information? So, all right. Again, I'm Pat Hill. I hope to hear from you, and please, like I said, subscribe, follow, share, please, and we'll see you soon.